And joining us live on First Post is Melik Abdul, a conservative radio host and GOP strategist with decades of experience in communications, US politics, and government, joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Now, Donald Trump's recent New York rally is being criticized as racist, and it has also upset many Puerto Ricans and Latinos. Now, members of these communities are demanding an apology from the former president. Do you think the rally could turn out to be the October surprise in this election?
No, because I think that those things are already baked into the cake. So you must understand, after these comments were made, it wasn't simply the Trump campaign that had distanced itself from the comments, but there were comments across the board from Republicans all around the country, particularly in areas much like in Florida, where there's a larger, I think the largest Puerto Rican population in Florida. So Senators Marco Rubio, Rick Scott, and a number of Republicans roundly condemned this. This is very different than things that may have happened in the past where people try to justify the remarks in some sort of way. Because that did not happen here, I think that this is something that will fade away, but it's kind of being usurped at this point by the recent comments that Joe Biden made last night, that is, of course, all in the news, where Joe Biden said that Trump supporters were like garbage. So I think I don't think that will ultimately hurt Kamala Harris at all, but this whole idea that this may have impact with the Puerto Rican community, I think that those things, if you already believe that this is something that Donald Trump supports, even though he didn't say it, you're probably not voting for him already.
Sure. We recently saw Barack Obama asking Black men to vote for Kamala Harris, and for them, it almost felt like a moral lecture. Now, in damage control, the vice president announced an economic plan, especially for Black men. Did it help her in winning back the voters' trust, or the Black voters have already been swayed away by Donald Trump?
Well, this is such an election like none other. So a lot of things, this is the first time we've had to deal in recent history for sure, that we had to deal with a vice president running while the current president, her current, boss is essentially still there. So we don't know what the numbers will look like, but it does look more promising for Donald Trump when it comes to the Black vote. And I think that the internal polling in the Harris campaign must have shown that there is some sort of issue there, because I do believe Barack Obama going out, he really did insult. You said moral lecture. That was a very good way to describe it, because what Barack Obama said is to those Black men, he said, I specifically want to address the brothers, meaning referencing Black men. And he said there seems to be an issue there with sexism or misogyny, this unwillingness to support a candidate who, as Barack Obama said, is from our community and went to our schools, meaning referring to historically Black colleges and universities. So he was making a direct racial appeal, voting for Kamala Harris because she's Black, but also admonishing Black men who over the years now have been moving away from the Democratic Party. It wasn't a good look, but they have doubled down on this. And I think that that's a problem that Kamala just can't seem to fix.
Sure. Now, so far, several Republicans, including Dick Cheney and his daughter Liz, and Barbara Bush, have endorsed Kamala Harris. Since you walked away from the Democratic Party in 2016, where do you think Donald Trump's campaign is lacking? And why do these Republicans feel the need to switch their choice for president?
So there was an upset in the system, unlike other places all around the globe, the United States has a duopoly, meaning it's either Democrat or Republican. So we just have that dual choice. And I think that people like me who became so disenchanted with the Democratic Party, particularly when they nominated Hillary Clinton, I had said that if they nominated Hillary Clinton, I would leave the Democratic Party. But I think that what has happened is that Donald Trump was such an upset. The reason that people talk about Ronald Reagan is because at least as far as a figurehead in the Republican Party, that was the last figure. And we're talking about in the 80s. I mean, many people weren't even born in the 80s. So Ronald Reagan had been that figure. In the George Bush wasn't that. His dad wasn't that. So Donald Trump ends up falling into what the Republican Party, this new iteration, a more populist, somewhat anti-war iteration of the Republican Party that people like Liz Cheney, Diz Cheney, and Dick Cheney, and many of them who never found a war that they weren't willing to engage in. Donald Trump is such an upset to that dichotomy that I think that we're now looking at what's this next iteration of the Republican Party will be.
And Donald Trump claims that two counties in Pennsylvania have potentially received thousands of fraudulent ballots. However, the election officials maintain that they are voter registration forms. Do you think that Trump should be more careful with his allegations, since this could stoke fears of voter fraud?
He should absolutely let it go. And I've talked to people close to the campaign. This is like a craw in Donald Trump's hat. He will not let this go. And people need to be clear that it isn't the people around Donald Trump, his senior advisors encouraging him to do this. This is Donald Trump. He cannot help himself. Any talk of stolen election, fraudulent election, any of that stuff, it does nothing to appeal to a larger audience that Donald Trump will need. You said, how does Donald Trump, or, as far as him making an appeal, he has to be able to reach those suburban voters in areas around Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, places in Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, because those are the battleground state. He can't just talk to his base. So talking about a stolen election or fraudulent voting, that's not going to appeal to anyone. It doesn't. People say that sometimes I'm a member of Donald Trump's base. I'm fine with that, but it doesn't even appeal to me. So I imagine that if it doesn't appeal to me, it's probably not going to appeal to anybody else.
Right. And Melik, be it Beyonce, Taylor Swift, or Cardi B, Kamala Harris has been backed by some of the biggest Hollywood celebrities across demographics. Can star power, if at all, make any difference in this tightly contested election?
So here in the United States, historically, no. What it has done, it creates like a very good, maybe news cycle. But Beyonce, I'm a huge Beyonce fan, and I tell them it doesn't matter that I'm a Republican. No one will say anything negative about Beyonce. But, we found out that even at her event, which was a largely attended event, many people were misled to believe that Beyonce was there to perform. She actually performed in 2016 when Hillary Clinton was running. And so we know that Hillary Clinton lost in 2016. So these celebrity endorsements on the left or the right, Democrats definitely have the Hollywood vote. Most billionaires in this election cycle support Kamala Harris. So, it's not really going to sway. Just for your audience out there, the only thing that will matter at this point in this election is the get out the vote to vote operation, meaning going door to door, making sure that your people are going to the polls. Celebrity endorsements can't influence that. It's going to be the people on the ground trying to get that vote out.
Thank you very much for joining us on First Post, and we appreciate your valued insights on all the latest on the US elections.
Thanks for having me.